Hi guys, welcome back to Nyx Reads. Thank you so much for watching. Please do subscribe if you like watching bookish content, and give this video a thumbs up if you love watching TBR videos like I do. Especially a fall and autumn TBR. I love seeing what everybody's reading around this cozy time. So we are switching into fall mode for today, but I still have one more summer video coming up. But for today, I have some books that I put together that I'm planning or hoping to read in fall. I don't know how much of this is possible, so this is technically more a pile of possibilities. I might participate in Nonfiction November, which is where you really focus on reading nonfiction in November, and you'll see that all of these books are fiction. So let's see how much of this I will accomplish, but I am excited about each and every title on this list. Let's start off with two classic-ish books. So first of all, I have Lord of the Flies by William Golding. Ever since I read Anna Karenina, I've been wanting to read more classics. I have an itch now to annotate books and tap pages, and I figured that this is going to be a nice fall read. Also because I started watching Lost with my boyfriend. I know this show is so old, but I just never watched it, so please don't spoil anything. I just finished season 1, and I think we're gonna start on season 2 soon. If you've never heard of this book before, this is a book that was published in the 50s, and it is a story about a group of young boys that get stranded on an island and anarchy ensues. It's this interesting experiment of what happens to these boys when there's no adults, no laws, no rules, and how they start to organize themselves, and you know, the violence that comes out of this situation. It's a lot about power dynamics and group buildings. I haven't read this, but we did a school play on this book. That's why I do know a few of the details. I still remember what happens in it, but not everything. So I think this is going to be a great one to annotate. The other, I think, horror classic that I'm really excited about is We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. So I reread The Haunting of Hill House last year by this author, and it is now one of my favorite books. So I'm obviously hoping that this is going to be another 5-star read, a book that I will absolutely love. The more I look at this cover and the back, the more interesting it gets, because it looks like there's like an angry mob around this, what I assume is a mom and daughter pair with the cat. So this looks like I will absolutely enjoy it. And both of these books are quite short, so I'm really hoping, fingers crossed, that I'll read both of these. Again, one of my goals is to read down my TBR, my physical TBR, so the books that I already own. So a lot of the books that I have on this fall TBR, I already have. Then I have 2 fantasy picks. I meant to put the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin on this list, but I stopped myself because I would have had to buy that and trying to read what I have. So instead I picked The Lives of Locke, Lamora by Lynch. I bought this ages ago. I bought this because I heard that it's an even better heist story than Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo, and I loved that duology. I know a lot of people love this one, but I think this might be YA. So I'm not too sure if I'm gonna love that, because I'm trying to stay clear of YA these days. And that's all I know about this book, by the way. I know that it's a heist story. It looks like it takes place in Venice, but I don't want to know more than that, because if it's fantasy, I want to go into it blindly, like into most of my books actually. Then I want to reread Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. If you watched my 2023 favorite books, then you know that this was my absolute favorite book of last year, which is crazy because I just said that I'm trying to stay clear of YA, and yet this is YA. I already mentioned in that video that this doesn't read as if it's YA. It's actually quite adult, but the protagonist happens to be in college. I was so incredibly impressed with how the author managed to put not just one fantasy storyline, but multiple fantasy storylines, how she managed to weave them all together. The main one is the Arthurian legend. And then not just that, but also family drama, heritage, lore, generational trauma. She even talks about slavery in the US. It is absolutely outstanding. I can't believe that this is a debut novel. So I want to reread this as an audiobook, so I have a hold on the library. I'm doing that because I want to read the second book soon after, but I do want to refresh myself on what happened in the first book. And I figured I don't have to pay too much attention, so I'm gonna try it as an audiobook, which I usually don't with fantasy books because there's just too many details that I need to keep track of. Would it be unfair if I give this book once again a spot in my favorites video for this year? Because I feel like it's gonna happen. There's no way I'm not gonna love this just as much as the first time I read this. Staying on the topic of second book in a series, I want to read, it's thicker than I remembered. I want to read Moonflower Murders by Anthony Horowitz. Wow, how many pages is this? It said 300 pages, but this feels like a 600-page book. I think it's because it's once again a book in a book situation. I'm getting ahead of myself. So this is the second book. The first one is Magpie Murders. I absolutely love that book. It was also in my top 3 favorites of last year. It's an amazing murder mystery that is also a story within a story. I don't want to give anything away. You should read it though. If you want to know more details, watch my favorites from 2023. So this is the second book. We are looking at the same main character, Susan Ryland, who is an editor. I don't want to know any more than that. I want to go into this once again, not knowing anything, but I will tell you what the first book is about. So Magpie Murders is about the editor Susan Ryland looking at the newest manuscript from a very famous murder mystery writer that she's worked with multiple times before. So you as the reader are reading the manuscript right alongside her. And it turns out that the mystery from that manuscript carries over into the real world of Susan Ryland's real world. I heard from some people that the second book is even better than the first. The first I think I gave 4.5 to. So maybe this is going to be a 5-star. The first book can be read as a standalone. It has its own ending that clears up all of the questions you might have. In any case, if you are a fan of murder mysteries, you definitely have to pick up Magpie Murders. I remember when I had showed that book in my haul, a lot of people in the comments were telling me that it is a must read, it is amazing, and I was not let down. You guys were all right. So let me know if you also think that this book, if you've read it, is just as amazing as the first, or hopefully even better. Next, I have a wild card pick. It's 7 Empty Houses by Samantha Schweblin. This is a book translated from Spanish to English. The author is Argentinian. I found this book randomly in my library, and it's been a few months. I remember that the back sounded absolutely fascinating. It sounded like it's obscure, going into Twilight Zone horror, but also lit fic. Anyways, it sounded great. Can't remember what it's about. Don't want to know. This must be so frustrating for people watching because I refuse to read the summaries of the books that I'm putting on my TBR, but I'll leave the titles and the names of the authors in the description box below. So if you need more information than I do, then you're welcome to look it up. This book sounds absolutely up my alley, and as a bonus point, I don't think I've ever read something from an Argentinian author before, and it plays into my goal of, you know, trying to read from other countries and more translated books. Now I feel bad. I'm looking this book up on Goodreads because I want to be able to read you at least some of the plot summary, because I'm telling you that it sounded amazing to me and I can't even remember what it is that I've read. The 7 houses in these 7 stories are empty. Some are devoid of love or life or furniture or people or the truth or of memories. But in Samantha Schweblin's tense visionary tales, something always creeps back in. A ghost, a fight, trespassers, a list of things to do before you die, a child's first encounter with a dark choice, or the fallibility of parents. I remember reading that and thinking, wow, this has the potential of a 5-star read. Then I have 2 horror picks. The first one is Seek Yahor and Other Stories by Yvette Tan. This is from my Philippines haul. This is a Filipino author. I got this while I was there on vacation, and it's a collection of short horror stories. So that's, I think, all we need to know. The title obviously sounded very enticing, very funny. I was keeping this to read around Halloween time, and here we are. My other horror pick is Incidents Around the House by Josh Malerman. I heard that this is absolutely terrifying. I am a huge scaredy cat, but it just sounds so intriguing. The book description says, a chilling horror novel about a haunting told from the perspective of a young girl whose troubled family is targeted by an entity she calls Other Mommy. Ugh. It sounds very scary though, and you gotta have some of those on your fall TBR, right? And lastly, I have one romance book picked out. I want to read What the Hex by Jessica Clare. I read Go Hex Yourself last year and I loved it. I had so much fun with it. And this is the book that follows. So the first book was about Reggie Johnson, who's looking for a job in the papers, and she becomes a familiar to this witch. And what she doesn't realize is that this is an actual witch. At first she's in disbelief. She doesn't want to believe that there's such a thing as magic, but then she obviously is forced to realize that it exists in this world. And at the same time, while being a familiar to this witch, she's dealing with the witch's very handsome but very annoying nephew, and sparks fly. And then the second book is about a girl called Penny. And if I remember correctly, she works at this like witch shop, and her goal is to become herself a familiar to a witch. This is about her and one of the not antagonists, but one of the mean guys in the first book somehow getting together, and I guess also here sparks will fly. I'm really excited about this one. The reason why I loved Go Hex Yourself so much is I think because of this fantastical element. So if I read, for example, an Allie Hazelwood, this is set in the real world, in an academia world, it is just too real for me. Go Hex Yourself, because of this fantastical element of magic and the witches, I didn't take it too seriously. So I was super on board with all the cringiness and with all the romance and all the tropes, because I knew from the beginning that it's not real life. I don't have to scrutinize that romance in the same way as I do with, let's say, an Allie Hazelwood. So that's why that book really worked for me. I'm hoping that the second book is going to be just as awesome as the first one. If you have any recommendations for romances that are like this, not necessarily about witches or magic, but with any kind of fantasy element, then let me know which ones are your favorites, because I'm sure I can give these a go. So that's all the books that are on my fall TBR, or positive possibilities, I should say. I'm very excited about all of these ones. Let me know in the comments if there's a specific book that you think I should prioritize because you read it and it's awesome. Let me know in the comments what you are reading this fall or autumn. And if you just want to let me know that you're still watching, why don't you leave me a skeleton emoji like on this cover? Feel free to subscribe if you love watching chatty videos, TBR videos, wrap-ups, reading vlogs, that kind of good stuff. And I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.